in planting potatoes, we're going to plant them in a hole. And the reason they go down in the hole is because they don't produce potatoes off their roots. You can start up the other side, making a row of holes. They grow off their stem to produce root. So you want as much of the stem buried in the ground. So what we're doing here is, this is as deep down as we're really going to get. It's a very shallow bed. This is all we get. So now this here is a inoculant. It's a BioCoat Gold by Advanced Ecological Agriculture. And what we're going to do is put some of this here in this container. And it does not like sunlight because these are live microbes. And I'm going to put in just a little bit of water so that it will splash around. And then I'm going to take these potatoes here. These potatoes have been chitting. C-H-I-T-T-I-N-G. They've been sitting for months in the light so that the sprouts only grow short. This is a way to keep them for an extra few months to plant late potatoes. So I'm going to put them in here like this, and maybe I better use a little more water so I can cover it better. And I just want to get them wet with the inoculant, okay? So that it's covered with microbes. And so now, and then I put that in here and just cover it over. And these here are some yellow potatoes. And so I'll get them wet and with the microbes. And I have it in a black can like this so it will stay out of the sunlight as much as possible. Okay, so that's a couple of them there. And then over here, I'm going to have some Amorosa. This is a red potato. When I say red, it's not just the skin. It's red on the inside. Very pretty potato. And so they're a smaller fingerling, so I'll put a couple together here. Okay, they're all wet, so I'll plant one down in here. And add a little one to it. And a couple like this here. And they've been chitting too. They've been sitting in the sunlight, and they have been growing very short sprouts for months now until I'm ready to plant, and now I'm ready to plant. Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
With all of those, you didn't need to cut any of them so that
No.
you get more? Because they had quite
I
a
have
few.
plenty.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, so we're planting, do we want to maybe cut the ones that had?
Commercially, they plant a whole potato because they want they want the most out of it as possible. Okay. Let's see, these are pretty close together. They don't have to be quite that close. We will take a couple. This row will be the yellow potatoes. And okay, put another one here and another one here. You just cover them over. And that's all we have for soil. Normally, when you plant your potatoes, what you would do is you plant them and you plant them 4 foot apart. So you come, when the potatoes are about this high, you pull the soil up so you have a mound of soil, and you cover more stem so you get more potatoes. But we don't have that situation. All we have is this soil here. So this is what we're going to do. But we can add to it. Let me put in a couple more Amorosa over here. These are the red ones that actually have a red flesh. Very pretty and very flavorful, the phytonutrients in it. We splash them with the water so that they have the microbes, are inoculated with the microbes. Put them as deep down as we can here. And okay, and so that has a few of them done. If someone would like, they could plant the rest. Red down here and the yellows over there. But what we do at this point now, since it's shallow with the soil, is we're going to take this. This is leaves that were chopped up, and I'm going to fill the bed over these things with that. And they'll come through that, and they'll push potatoes out right underneath those leaves. And there's plenty more of these leaves where they come from. So this is why you want to save your leaves. Potatoes are a woodland plant. They like a woodland ecosystem. In other words, they like a woodland microbiome, okay? They're not a prairie plant like most garden plants. I like it nice and thick because they'll produce more underneath it. So more leaves can be gotten, and it can be thickly covered, and the rest of those potatoes can be planted. So that's how you plant white potatoes. The ground was prepared. We used all the topsoil that was in here. There's a limit to it. And they produce their potatoes off the stems. So as much of the stems is covered, and as the stems come through these leaves, they'll produce in the leaves too. Okay, now, although these are called potatoes, sweet potatoes, totally different way to take care of them. Okay, at the beginning of this sweet potato row, I'm going to put in a yacon because yacon is in the sunflower family, and it will grow about 4 feet tall or maybe a little taller with rain. And it too produces what looks like sweet potatoes coming off its roots. It will have a clump of them. They like have a clump this big of a whole bunch of sweet potatoes. So sweet potato looking, but you eat it raw, and it's used for the sugar industry. It is used and grown commercially in the world for sugar. For a sugar that diabetics can eat. It is a very high fiber food. So I just want to make enough room, get this yacon in here, and pull it around, and then we got to water it good. Just like we have to, you want to get them well established in the soil because this was just brought in. Okay, so now these sweet potatoes here, I have 6 of them right here. I pulled them off my sweet potatoes that I grew last year. I took them and put dirt over them, an inch or 2 of dirt, and then they come up and produce little sprouts with roots on it, and then I will stick, that will grow about that wide, so I'll stick one here. And I just go down enough to bury it and leave room for a little pocket of water. And they say plant them to 1 foot to 18 inches apart. A foot if you want them smaller, 18 inches if you want them bigger. So I'll put them about 16 inches apart. And these leaves are all going to die back, and they'll just be a sprout. But that's all right. That sprout will grow. But they need to be watered. So you make enough of a cup when you do this to be able to come with a bucket and pour water in there and let it, so I'll do about 16 inches apart. You'll have a medium-sized potatoes. Leave a cup around it so you can fill it with water. Don't let the water run over because it will cut a channel. And then it'll be hard to water it again until the rains come. And once the rains come, it'll be good. And if you want greater production, you need more heat up here in Connecticut. And so therefore, you can either put black plastic. I have strips of black tarp that I've cut in strips and I just put on either side. Or I have a couple rows and I have a 5-foot area in between with the black plastic that goes right up to the edge like this. That way it keeps weeds out and grass and that stuff. So I'm gonna put these about 16 inches apart. And by the way, I've noticed with my sweet potatoes, the smaller they are, the sweeter they are. The bigger they are, they're not as sweet. So it's sometimes wise to plant them closer so you get smaller potatoes for better take. Now these are a couple, I don't know what kind these are. Someone brought them to me. These are probably an orange one or something. Those are Murasaki, the Japanese ones, or Korean ones. I originally got some from some Korean friends. You got to have that cup so the water can go in there. And of course, this quack grass, wherever you can, pull it out. And one more yacon at the end. It should have been in the ground a while ago. You can see the roots are going round and round in there, but hopefully it'll take off well. Okay, now they just need to be watered. I'm going to put some green beans right here. Just making enough of a divot to have some soil to bury them. And again, I'm going to take the inoculant here and inoculate the seeds. Okay. Got that all planted with this? That's beds all planted?
Those are planted.
Okay, good. I'll use some of this water right in here. And just need to get them muddy so it's difficult to plant them. I say that as a joke, but it's hard when they're sloppy and muddy to put them in the row there. Okay, who has their trusty knife like Debbie said she always carries with? Oh, I got this thing here. I'll just use this. This is my trusty knife, but it's clippers. What's that? These are the bean seeds. I had to go buy some seed. My seed was older. This just has some old seed in here too. So I just plant them closer, and then the weak ones, I just yank them out. So now I'm getting them dirty. Okay, and so they're coated. So we'll just put them down in here. Oops, see how they stick to my finger and that seed dropped right there? You gotta. What's that?
About 1 or 2 at a time.
No, I just put one at a time, but you know, they're supposed to be about 8 inches apart. But I plant them closer because, like I said, some of these seeds were yellowish. They're not gonna grow. They're sickly. I don't know the quality of the seed, so better close and then pull out the extra later. Okay, this stuff doesn't like sunlight, so I'm gonna cover them over. And you cover them over, beans are a pretty big seed, so you cover it over with about 1 inch or 2 of soil. It'll come through it without any problem. When you're dealing with a little tiny seed, you don't need much. Matter of fact, with a tiny seed, since we're not going to do it, I'll explain it. I just sow it on top, and then I take a grass rake. That's different than an iron rake. The iron rake has short tines. A grass rake has a long tine. And I run it backwards, upside down. And it just scuffs up the soil enough so that there'll be soil washed up against it when it rains or when you irrigate. Now, I think Debbie said beans don't like dill. We'll put it up here with the tomatoes. Okay, everything's going to have to be watered because these beans aren't going to do anything unless they're watered. You can bury the stem as deep as you want because the stem will produce roots, and it will produce better with roots. I will put that down. You can even bury the stem, and so only the top is sticking out, and all of that will root and will be do better that way. Now Debbie says they like marigold, so I'm going to have another tomato here. So I'll just put right next to it a marigold in between it. Yep. I have the basil in the next plant. So here's a marigold. Now, color is important. I haven't talked about this, but God taught Adam and Eve to put in a garden. The concept of a garden, as I mentioned at the sermon yesterday, was that we have these beautifully planted gardens around the world, and they are what we call plantings. They're planting designs. So he gave Adam and Eve a design to put in. The only information that I have gotten on design, we Americans talk about companion planting, and we've made a few observations, but in India, they have plantings of 5, 7s, 12s. I can't understand Indian, so I don't know what they are. I would love to learn. But I did learn this from Sandra Horner, who was a missionary, Adventist missionary, with 2 places, one in Nepal and one over the border in India. And she was told that what they do is you alternate plant colors. For instance, you have your red cabbage, and it sort of have anything that has that anthocyanins, that red, purple, blue color, you alternate the color. It could be a red lettuce with a green lettuce, or a red lettuce with a green cabbage. But you alternate, because we put kale in, a red kale at our house for the kale, because I like that red Russian kale the best, and you alternate it with green between it. So you have red, green, red, green, red, green. That's one thing they do in the garden design. Another thing they do in the garden design, Debbie was mentioning some of that, about putting radishes. The reason to put the radishes with the onions is because the radishes have hairs and the onions are smooth. So they will interplant hairy, smooth leaf, hairy, smooth leaf crops together. Another thing they do is they put aromatics, and they'll use aromatics as a boundary. Aromatics are onion, garlic, the whole allium family, as Debbie was saying, are aromatic, but you also have all these different herbs they too are aromatic. And they can be used as borders, or they can be used interplanted. And the aromatics, all these things impart something, we don't know what they are, but it improves the growth. And when Sandra did that, she said, we got much better cabbage. We had less pest attack. We had much better quality. And another thing that they do besides the aromatics, the colors, the hairy leaf, smooth leaf, is they would put shallow leaf, deep-rooted things together. And the shallow roots would go down and get things that weren't available. The deep roots would go down and get things that weren't available to the shallow roots, and then their roots, as they intermingle, they share. Everything in nature shares with each other. There's another thing that is not coming to my mind that they do. Oh, fern leaf plants. As I contemplated these frilly leaf plants, basically what they are the umbelliferae. The umbelliferae are your dills, your parsley. They all produce flowers in an umbel. You'll have to go look it up, U-M-B-E-L, an umbel. And it's a type of flower head. That whole family has them, but they all tend to have frilly leaves. This doesn't have many cuts in it, but look at the frilliness on this dill. Look at the frilliness on a carrot. See the deep cuts in the leaves like that? That's planting leaves with deep cuts like that also does something to enhance everything's growth together. What it is, remember, these are natives who use empirical evidence. They don't use scientific evidence, which I disdain because it's so ridiculous. Scientific evidence, they create an environment that doesn't exist, and then you test in it, and you're supposed to think you've learned something. How ridiculous. You plant in the environment God has given you, in the soil we've been given right here on this ground, in this type of heat, in this type of weather, and this type of climate. That's what you do. You make observations, empirical evidence, and you study what God has given you, and you work with that design. Okay, so we'll put this tomato in here also. Covers as much of the stem as we want. Now, these should all be, but not the green beans. These can be mulched with green grass clippings. The reason I say the green beans is because you know what Velcro is, and you know how Velcro stuff starts sticking to it. Beans have little Velcro hairs, and then the grass clippings stick to it, and then you're washing every single bean, trying to get the grass hairs off so you don't mulch with green grass clippings. But you don't need to. You don't need to with the bean because green grass clippings provide a nitrogen as well as other things, and you don't need it with beans. We've inoculated them. We have an inoculant there, and that inoculation also has the nitrogen-fixing bacteria that the legumes need. Now again, we're going to interplant another flower because we want color. These zinnias, I forgot what the research was. Some people have made the observation, but zinnias, this is a Shasta mix here of different colors. It's going to give you, it can be white, orange, reds, but these colors are very beneficial in a garden. How they work, I don't know. Observation shows it's very important and is very beneficial for the plants. Okay. We'll put another tomato here. I don't even know what kind they are. We'll just find out. Like I said, this was an extra bed, and so we're just putting something in it. But mulching these tomatoes with green grass clippings will be very beneficial. You'll double production by mulching with green grass clippings. This soil is weak. It does not have a lot of nutrition. It does not have microbe apartments. You can't expect a large population of microbes that are going to produce the fertility that supplies the plant without dwelling quarters for them. And that's what the organic matter is. And the darker the soil is, the more of that organic matter is in it. That soil that was brought over, very light. It's mostly this sandy stuff, doesn't have a lot of carbon in it. That's what organic chemistry is, carbon chemistry. Organic matter is carbon. Humus, the apartments are made strictly out of carbon, whether it's the carbon of biochar down in the tropical areas of the world, or whether it's the humus that's formed by the decomposition of organic matter. The organic matter, carbon, is transformed by particular bacteria that are in this inoculant into housing apartments for all kinds of microbes. Okay, so we'll just put a parsley in this corner here. When I finish this, I've got extra parsley and flowers and stuff. I'm going to go through the beds, and any spots I see open, I'm putting them in there because they're all going to benefit what's growing there. Okay, so this parsley will be here, and of course someone can water them. I'll put this dill over here.
So
right on.
you don't have to put any fertilizer for the tomatoes or anything?
This is what I do. Organic chemistry follows the route of conventional or chemical agriculture, in that they use fertilizers. Remember, there are three types of agriculture. Conventional agriculture, using chemical fertilizers and chemical sprays. Organic agriculture, using natural fertilizers and natural sprays. And regenerative agriculture, where microbes create a fertile soil. You've heard of the Fertile Crescent in Iraq in ancient times. You've heard of the fertility of the Nile before they put the Aswan Dam and stopped the flooding. There are fertile, very fertile areas of the world, and the reason they're so fertile is because of the microbial populations there. There's a sufficient carbon for housing, so they can get as large as they're necessary, and their presence is there. In the conventional agriculture farmlands, they're almost sterile of the microbes. And we're talking microbes, 50 to 100,000 species. Okay? This is an enormous microbiome. There was an astronomer investigating the microbiome, and his response was, "This is more vast than the universe." That was his response. And they're all producing different nutrients. They no longer classify microbes by shape, rod-shaped bacteria, spiral-shaped bacteria, spherical bacteria. They now classify them according to the DNA. And the DNA is the genetic blueprint, and that blueprint is their ability to produce particular chemicals, phytonutrients. Because we're this far north, I'm growing, this is a Jimmy Nardello. The Nardello family brought it over from Italy, I don't know how many years ago, 50, 100 years ago, whatever. And they have developed it in Naugatuck, Connecticut. And it's one of the sweetest, it is the sweetest pepper I know, that produces abundantly here in Connecticut. I only know four peppers that produce abundantly in Connecticut. Now, the reason I say that is they will not produce flowers. They will not produce flowers unless the nighttime temperature is 80 degrees. How often do we have 80 degrees at night? We don't. And so when you buy a pepper in the store, it has little flowers on it, and that's all the peppers you're going to get, because it will not produce any more flowers, because it's never going to get hot enough at night to produce more flowers. So, but I like to also let them have some flowers on them in the greenhouse, because then I get earlier peppers rather than put them in and wait till things warm up. Now, so when you plant the pepper, you just want to put it in as deep, you know, you can put it maybe an inch more above the level that it is in here. So I just push it in and plant that. Now here's some flowers. I'm throwing them in at the end of the row. Here's zinnias. This is a good sized clump. We can pull it apart and give us some, and we can put this here, and we'll put this here. And this is a parsley. This will give us a little, this is one of those somewhat frilly leaf plants, but it's an aromatic. And it imparts some benefit to the other things that are growing here. We don't know what it is, but remember, those people who live a life growing their own food learn what works. They may not know why. Doesn't matter whether they know why, but it works, okay? Here's an example of a squash that's been in a pot too long. You can come down here and take a look at it here. I had put these in a while ago, and see how this isn't real bad, but that's a lot of roots. See how they're starting to go round and around? That creates a little bit of stunting. These are summer squash. This is a row of summer squash. These are crookneck. I find crookneck to be very delicious, so I always plant them every year. I find them much better tasting than the straight neck. See, it's been doing a little spinning, you know, so you can see been in there a little too long, but that's all right. It won't stunt it too bad. Okay, this is some type of zucchini. And maybe striata, the sort of striped zucchini. There's all kinds of zucchinis you can put in. These are the right size. See, there's very few roots. See, very few white roots there. And this was well timed for planting. This is some other type of zucchini. This is the striped one. And again, there's very few roots, and it was timed right for putting in the greenhouse and then putting in the ground. Okay, and this an odd hole, so we're putting the tomato in it. Gary, could you bring me that shovel? Okay, since it's a tall tomato, we want to bury as much of the stem as possible, so use a shovel rather than just my hands. Could you get that?
Yep.
And get it quick because the ants are going to be
I'm sorry.
getting me. Okay.
You want to put that,
These tomatoes are varieties that I have saved the seed from for years. The Brandywine, I have saved that seed since the early 90s. I remember saving my Brandywine seed and planting it once with a Valencia, it was called Valencia, and it was an orange tomato. And the bee got in there and crossed it with the orange. And the normal Brandywine has a green shoulder, and that replaced the green shoulder with an orange shoulder. And it's the most delicious tomato. So I've been planting it since the early 90s. Thank the bee. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's God's design. See, these split leaf tomatoes don't cross because they have the male pollen right over the female part of the flower. It's only the potato leaf plants that are open enough for a bee to get in and cross. Okay, they can go in and rummage around and get some pollen, but they can't interfere with crossing. So split leaves don't cross. They can stay true to variety, but potato leaf, they can cross. Okay, and you've got a picture of how the difference between a potato leaf and the other. Okay, so these are the split leaves and potato leaves, and we've already talked about how to plant them. Bury as much of that stem as possible. I'll let anyone who wants to plant them, go ahead and plant them. I have here an Amanda, a big orange, a Virginia sweet, a big yellow, and then these 4 potato leaf ones. 2 of them are the Brandywine that I just talked about, that I saved. You got it. And then 2 of them are black Japanese Truffelli or something. I don't know what it is, but black tomatoes are delicious. They're very delicious. And this produces well, this black Japanese, and it's a plum-shaped tomato. My wife's a tomato connoisseur, and she likes that the most. Okay, here with all these stakes are cherry tomatoes. I put them in before the frost came, and they were killed almost to the ground. They were killed to, you can see right here. The reason I have this, and this is I am going to select, as this grows, 1 stem to go up here, 1 stem to go here, and 1 stem to go here. And I will have 3 stems. And then if you come down close here with that, once I get my stems, this is 1 stem. I'll probably select that for over here. Here's another stem coming out of the axil of the leaf. Can you get that shot well? We don't need this in the way. Here's another one coming out of the axil of the leaf. I will select this main one and 2 of those stems. The rest of the stems I will snip off. And I will continue to snip them off as they go up the plant. Now, you never want to touch the inflorescence. That is your fruit. But many people have trouble discerning a stem from a leaf. Stems come out of the axil of the leaf. The axil of the leaf is where it goes into a stem. And out of the axil comes another stem. So you start snipping them off once you get your 3. And as they climb, out of every leaf will be another stem. You snip them off, snip them off. You only allow the 3 to go up. You can just have 1 up if you have lots of plants. You can just have 2. But I do 3 here because I only had a few plants. So we're doing 3. So I put a stake in the ground good, and then I put a tall thing that they can climb. And these type of cherry tomatoes, they will grow 12 feet. So they'll grow up to the top here, and then they'll come down like this. At least they do at my house. Okay, and so Debbie suggests that because everyone says so, and I assume so because I've heard it all my life, that tomatoes like basil. So we'll take, remember I only have one plant here, I have one plant there, and I'll take one of these, I'll take a basil and put it in the ground between them. And I'll take a parsley too and put it there. They would appreciate something like that. And these here also, if someone would like, they can put a parsley between some of these plants there. These are some celery. I have more parsley, but I'll put the basil between the tomato plant just to have a tomato. So now these aren't going to sprawl on the ground because these are all going to be trained. They're going to be trained to grow upward.
And that's going to communicate this perfect, even at distance like that. They'll communicate together. They're companion.
You would be surprised how far roots go. I was digging in a garden one day and there was some, I dug this root and I'm saying, where did this come from? I started pulling it. It went 15 feet to a zucchini plant. I remember one time I was in the blueberry patch and I hit some root when I was digging for a pipe. I followed it back 20 feet to a blueberry plant. Roots will go. They will go. They'll spread and, you know, so we'll put another, we can put another basil in here. We can put, Debbie says they do good with marigold. So let's put a marigold right outside. Well, we'll put it on the south side. Put it on the south side here. And on the south side right here. We'll have to do something with these celery. They can go somewhere. And you just dig a pit. One of the best things to put in these pits, in all of these pits, would be rotted manures because of the high carbon content, but we don't have that. The best we have is this sort of composted. Yeah, if you can just give a couple swipes out of there and right. Very good, thank you.
Yeah, they'll travel long. 20 feet is
Average.
It's little compared to, it could be a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. This is a staple food for New England. This butternut squash has no problems. You know, you plant Hubbards, you may get the borers in the stems, you may get other varieties and they don't produce. This never has a problem, the butternut.
Hardy.
Yeah, it just works perfect. This is what we need for all our produce. We need to select varieties that don't have a problem. But the spray industry has taken control. The petrochemical industry is taking control of our agricultural colleges, and therefore everything has to have some spray or some fertilizer or some product that they produce, or it doesn't go out on the market. Okay, see, this is twisting around a bit. These want to go and go fast, so they quickly start to do that because they really grow. Okay, this is our winter squashes, something that part of the three sisters. You're gonna have the squashes, corn, and beans together, and the squashes cover and shade the ground, reducing water loss. The corn stalks, they'll grow up into the air, and the beans, you plant them a month later. After the corn's about a foot high, you plant the beans, and then the climbing beans will climb the stalk and provide nitrogen for both the corn and the squashes. So that's what
here, Jerry, you're gonna put like hay or mulch, something?
They're going to put green grass clippings. They're going to mulch these things with green grass clippings. Okay, I guess we pretty much covered this year.
Thank you,
So,
sir.
Okay, you're welcome.